You check her location before you've admitted to yourself that you're checking it. Or the opposite. She says, "I love you," and something in your chest quietly slams a door, and you change the subject. Both of those are the same thing wearing two different faces. And by the end of tonight, you'll know which face is yours, why it's not a flaw in your character, and the one thing that actually moves it. Last time we talked about the man who makes a woman his purpose and loses her for it. Tonight we go one layer under that. Because the reason he does it, and the reason another man does the exact opposite, running the second things get real, isn't random. It's not some men are needy and some men are commitment phobic. It's a pattern with a name. It was built in you before you could talk, and once you see it, you can't unsee it in your own life. Psychologists call it attachment style. There are 3 of them that matter here: anxious, avoidant, and secure. And I'd bet real money you already recognized yourself in the first 10 seconds of this video. Here's where it comes from, because the origin is the whole key to fixing it. As a baby, you couldn't feed yourself, protect yourself, or regulate your own fear. You needed a bigger person to do it for you. And somewhere very early, before you had language for any of this, you learned a lesson about what happens when you need someone. Some kids learned, when I reach out, someone reliable reaches back. That's secure attachment. Some kids learned, sometimes someone comes, sometimes they don't. So I'd better reach out loud and often and never stop making sure. That's anxious attachment. And some kids learned, reaching out doesn't work or it costs me, so the safest move is to need less. That's avoidant attachment. None of this was a decision. You didn't choose it any more than you chose your native language. It was a survival strategy your nervous system built, and it worked, at the time, for a small child with no other options. The problem is that strategy didn't get an update. It's still running the show in your adult relationships, decades later, on a person with a fully grown nervous system who has other options now. And this matters because of what it's not. It's not a character flaw. It's not proof you're broken, or too much, or not enough. A smoke alarm that goes off at a candle isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it was built to do, just aimed at the wrong fire. Your attachment style is the same. It's not evidence against you. It's evidence of what you had to survive and how well you survived it. The wanting underneath all 3 styles, anxious, avoidant, and secure, is identical. Every one of them just wants to be safe enough to be loved. Only the strategy changed. If you've watched the last several episodes with us, you already have half the map: the father wound, the mother wound, the mask you built to survive your own house. All of that is the origin story. Attachment style is the same origin story, examined from one specific angle. Not, what did you learn about your own worth, but what did you learn about what happens when you need someone? Same childhood, same house. A different question asked of it. One more thing before we get concrete. These 3 styles aren't a life sentence handed down by one bad childhood moment, and they're not a fixed personality type like a horoscope. They're closer to a default setting, the direction your nervous system leans when it's tired, stressed, or caught off guard. Under normal conditions, a lot of men look secure enough. It's specifically under pressure, when something actually matters, that the old default takes the wheel. That's exactly why it's so easy to miss in yourself. You're not lying to yourself when you say you're usually fine. You are usually fine. The pattern shows up precisely when it counts. Let's make this concrete, because the theory means nothing until you see your own life in it. If you're anxious, here's what it actually looks like from the inside. You meet someone and things go well, and instead of feeling calm, you feel a low hum of dread underneath the excitement, because good things are the setup for the bad thing. You reread her texts for tone. A slow reply doesn't feel like a slow reply, it feels like evidence. You know her patterns better than she knows them herself, because you've been studying her the way you'd study a weather system that might turn on you. Early on, this shows up as texting too fast, too often, and reading a delayed reply as the beginning of the end. You've heard some version of, "You're a lot," or "I need some space," and it landed like a verdict on your character instead of one piece of feedback. And here's the part that hurts to hear. The anxiety isn't about her. It's the same alarm that used to go off when you were small and needed someone who wasn't reliably there. She just triggered a very old system. If you're avoidant, it looks almost the opposite, and it's easy to mistake for being fine. Someone gets close, and just as things start to feel real, you feel an urge to create distance. You find yourself noticing her flaws right around the time she starts to matter. You value your independence, genuinely, but if you're honest, part of that independence is armor. You'd rather be alone and in control than close and exposed. Early on, this looks like the slow fade instead of an honest conversation, the sudden need for space right when things were going well, the friend who's had 4 promising relationships end the same way and calls it bad luck. And the tell is this: when she pulls back a little, you relax. When she leans in, something in you wants to leave the room, even if you never actually do. That's not a preference for freedom. That's the same old lesson. Needing someone doesn't end well, so don't need them. And the third type, secure, isn't the absence of feeling. Secure people still get hurt, still get anxious sometimes, still miss someone when they're gone. The difference is they don't panic about the relationship itself. They can be close without losing themselves and independent without disappearing. When something's wrong, they say it plainly instead of either chasing or fleeing. If you're evaluating someone you're dating and wondering whether she's secure, watch for this. Does she say what's actually bothering her, or does she either go quiet and distant or spiral and need constant reassurance? Secure isn't loud and it isn't cold, it's steady. That's not luck. Most secure adults either had it modeled for them early, or they built it on purpose later. Which is the whole point of tonight. You can see all of this fastest in how a man fights, not how he flirts. Conflict strips the performance away. An anxious man in an argument escalates to get resolution fast, because unresolved tension feels like abandonment already starting. So he'll keep pushing for a conversation even when the other person needs space to cool down, and the pushing itself becomes the next fight. An avoidant man does the reverse. He shuts down, goes silent, agrees just to end it, or physically leaves the room because the conflict itself feels like the closeness turning dangerous, and distance is the oldest exit he knows. A secure man can stay in the room and stay honest at the same time, disagree without either escalating to win or going quiet to escape. If you want to know your pattern without waiting for a relationship to test it, look at the last real argument you had with anyone who mattered. Did you push harder for it to be over, or did you go quiet and wait for it to blow over? That's your answer, and it was never really about the argument. There's one more pattern you need to see because it's the trap almost nobody names correctly. Anxious and avoidant don't just coexist, they find each other over and over like they're built to. If you're anxious, an avoidant partner's distance doesn't repel you, it hooks you because the chase feels like proof that closeness is worth fighting for. And if you're avoidant, an anxious partner's pursuit doesn't feel safe, it feels confirming, proof that you were right to keep your guard up. You each become the exact evidence the other one's old alarm system was looking for. That's why this pairing produces some of the most intense, most addictive, and most miserable relationships out there. It isn't chemistry. It's 2 old wounds recognizing each other and mistaking the recognition for love. If that's the relationship you keep finding yourself in, on either side of it, that's not proof you found something rare. That's proof the pattern is running the show. Now here's why this matters more than almost anything else we've covered. Attachment style doesn't just run your love life. It runs the friend you don't reach out to because you don't want to be a burden. It runs the job you overperform in because you never fully trust that you're safe unless you're proving your worth. It's underneath the last 2 episodes without either of us naming it directly. The man who makes her his whole purpose from a few weeks ago, that's often anxious attachment wearing the costume of romance. and a man running cold the second someone gets close. That can be avoidant attachment, wearing the costume of independence. So, which one's yours? Be honest, not flattering. Think about the last time someone got close to you. Did you lean in harder, needing more contact, more certainty, more proof? That's the anxious pull. Or did some part of you start looking for the exit, even while you stayed? That's the avoidant pull. Most men aren't purely one or the other. You lean one way under stress and the other way when you feel safe, but you know which direction you default to when things get real. Name it, out loud if you have to. Here's the good news, and it's not a platitude, it's the actual finding. Attachment style isn't fixed. Researchers call the process of moving toward secure attachment as an adult earned security, and it happens for real people all the time, and not through luck. It happens two ways. The first is repetition, which we'll get to in a second. Second is relationship itself, meaning a steady friendship or a partner who's actually secure can slowly recalibrate you just by being consistent long enough that your nervous system finally believes it. You don't need a perfect childhood redone. You need enough new evidence, repeated enough times, that the old rule stops being the only rule you know. Every single time you catch the old pattern in the act, the reflex to chase or the reflex to flee, and you do the harder, less familiar thing instead, you're not just managing one moment. You're teaching your nervous system a new lesson to lay on top of the old one. If you're anxious, the rep looks like this. The urge hits to check, to reread, to send one more text to get the reassurance. And instead, once, you sit in the discomfort for 10 minutes without acting on it. That's it. That's the whole rep. You're teaching the part of you that panics that the silence is survivable, that you don't have to manage someone else's feelings to be safe. If you're avoidant, the rep is the reverse. The urge hits to pull back, to get busy, to find the flaw that gives you an excuse to create space. And instead, once, you stay. You say the slightly too honest thing. You let her see you want this. That's the whole rep. You're teaching the part of you that flees, that closeness doesn't have to cost you yourself. Neither of these reps feels good. They're not supposed to. You're not trying to feel comfortable. You're trying to prove the old rule wrong, one small piece of evidence at a time, until your nervous system updates the file. Expect it to take longer than one rep and expect to backslide under real stress. That's not failure. Old patterns get louder right before they lose, not right before they win quietly and disappear. Here's how you'll know it's actually working, so you're not just guessing in the dark. It isn't that the old urge stops showing up. It's that the gap gets longer between the urge and the action. First, it's a full day before you catch yourself and stop. Then it's an hour. Then it's the moment itself where you feel the pull and you're already choosing something else before you've finished feeling it. That gap is the whole game. You're not aiming for the day the feeling disappears. Anxious men will likely always feel a flicker of that old alarm. Avoidant men will likely always feel that old urge to create distance. You're aiming for the day the feeling stops being the boss of your hands. And there's a second sign, quieter than the first. You'll start noticing it in other people, not just yourself. You'll watch a friend spiral over a slow text back and recognize the exact shape of what used to run you. You'll watch another friend go cold the second someone gets close and see the armor for what it is. That recognition in other people is proof the pattern isn't invisible to you anymore, in yourself or anyone else. And what stops being invisible stops running you unopposed. So here's the one move for this week. Go back to the last real moment you had with someone you care about and notice honestly which direction you pulled. Then find the next moment like it and do the other thing. Not the loud, dramatic version. The small, quiet rep. That's how the pattern that was built without your permission gets rebuilt with it. If this named something in you, the free 7-day starter has a piece on catching your own attachment pattern in real time, not just understanding it after the fact. First link below, and drop one line in the comments. The pattern I default to under stress is blank, and here's a moment it showed up this week. Next time, we go back to the very thing your first relationship was built on, before you can even remember it. Your parents, the anima and the animus, and the shape of the woman you keep being drawn to without knowing why. I'll see you there.